Have you ever had someone request something from you, and you just couldn't shake the feeling that it was off? Like your gut was telling you it's not right? What if I told you there are 5 things that should never be asked of you, and when they are, it's not out of love, it's about control? If you've ever felt like you were being used or manipulated in a relationship, this video will really resonate with you. Make sure to subscribe to Stoic Force, hit that like button, and stick around until the end, because the 5th one might completely change your perspective on those around you. Let's get started. Victor sat in his car, the rain softly tapping on the windshield, but the silence inside him was deafening. He had just left Emily's place and his hands were trembling. Not out of anger or fear, but out of a sudden realization. She had asked him for something seemingly small, but when he thought about it, it felt like chains tightening around his soul. Let's dive into some philosophy now. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." But what if someone tries to give you a color that stains your soul forever? Here are 5 things you should never allow anyone to ask of you. And if they do, it's time to walk away. Point 1. Change who you are to make me feel comfortable. You remember the first time she said it, don't you? Maybe she didn't even say it directly. Maybe it was just a glance, a sigh, a pause too long after you told a story you thought was funny, and she just didn't laugh. Or maybe she said it with a smile. "You're kinda awkward sometimes, babe, but it's cute." That sting, wrapped in sugar. You laughed it off, but deep down, it lodged itself somewhere inside you. It started small. You changed how you spoke around her friends, started dressing a little different, stopped sharing the weird ideas that used to make you come alive, because you noticed how she'd get quiet when you did. You told yourself, it's normal. Relationships are about compromise, right? But this wasn't compromise. This was conversion. Your personality was being edited, and not by you. Victor went through it too. At first he thought Emily just wanted the best for him. "Try to be more social," she said. "Be more confident," she said. "Don't be so serious all the time." So he tried. He pushed down the parts of himself that felt too intense. He became the version of himself he thought she wanted. But each time he gave a piece of himself away, he felt smaller, less real, less Victor. Let me ask you something. Who were you before her? Before them? Before you started muting your own volume just to keep the peace? Can you still hear that version of you? The one who didn't flinch when you spoke your mind? The one who was maybe quiet, maybe intense, maybe not everyone's cup of tea, but was whole? Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Never esteem anything as of advantage to you that will make you break your word or lose your self-respect." Let that sink in. Because when someone asks you to change who you are just to make them more comfortable, what they're really saying is, "Your truth threatens me, be less." Victor remembered who he was one night when he sat alone. No music, no distractions, just him and his thoughts. And in that silence, he whispered to himself, "I miss me." That was the turning point. He stopped apologizing for his seriousness, stopped pretending to enjoy places he hated, started speaking slower, softer, more real, because that's who he was. And something strange happened. He felt powerful again. Not loud, not cocky, just aligned. That's what Stoicism is about. Not becoming someone else to avoid judgment, but becoming fully yourself, so rooted in who you are that no one can pull you out of it. Stay away from anyone who asks you to be less just to make them feel more. And if you've already started changing, it's not too late to come back home. Point 2, choose me over your purpose. Let me ask you something personal. Have you ever put your dreams on hold for someone who said they loved you? Do you remember that moment when you skipped a workout, canceled a plan, turned down a job, or paused your passion project because she said, "You're always so busy lately," or worse, "If you really cared, you'd choose me." And in that moment, you did. You chose her. Not because you were weak, but because you were loyal. Victor did too. Back when he was building his business, he had momentum. He was focused, sharp, on fire, but Emily started calling it cold, said he was married to his work. One night she looked him in the eye and said, "I feel like I'm in second place." It wrecked him, because Victor was a man who loved with his whole chest. So he scaled back, closed his laptop earlier, skipped his early mornings, delayed a major launch. He thought, this is what men do. We sacrifice. We show her she's number one. But here's the truth no one tells you. When you abandon your mission to keep someone, you lose both. Because purpose is not a hobby. It's your reason for being. It's the thing that makes you, you. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "A man's worth is no greater than the worth of his ambitions." When a woman or anyone asks you to choose them over your purpose, they're not loving the real you. They're loving the version of you that serves their comfort. And the most painful part? When you finally sacrifice your purpose to make her feel secure, she senses it. That fire she once admired in you? Gone. And soon, so is she. Victor learned that the hard way. 6 months later, Emily left. Said he felt different. That he'd changed. But he hadn't changed. He'd dimmed, shrunk himself to keep her close. And when she walked away, all he had left was the bitter taste of regret. So let me ask you, what are you building right now that you've paused for love? That book? That fitness goal? That business? That calling? You think putting it off will make them love you more, but it only makes you love yourself less. Never stay with someone who forces you to choose, because the one who's truly meant for you will walk beside your purpose, not stand in its way. Victor got back up, got back to his early mornings, and this time when someone came into his life, he didn't put down his mission. He made space for her next to it, but never instead of it. That's the Stoic path. Disciplined, rooted, purpose first. Because love that asks you to betray your mission isn't love, it's control. And you weren't made for chains. Point 3. Prove your love by sacrificing your boundaries. How many times have you been told, if you really loved me, you'd stay, you'd say yes, you'd let it go, you'd cross that line just this once? Do you remember the first time you said yes when your gut screamed no? When your throat tightened, your stomach dropped, but you still smiled and said, okay, because you didn't want to lose her. That moment, that's when you started bleeding internally. That's when your boundary cracked. And what was once self-respect became sacrifice, labeled as love. Victor knows that feeling too well. Emily was never a bad person, but she had a way of pushing, asking for more. A little more time, a little more access, a little more control. One night he told her he didn't want to share passwords. Not because he was hiding anything, but because he valued privacy, not secrecy, just space. His space. She stared at him, her voice calm but sharp. If you trusted me, you'd let me in. And that's the trap, isn't it? They don't attack your walls. They make you take them down yourself, piece by piece. Until suddenly your no means you're selfish. Your I need space means you're cold. Your standards? Ego. But Marcus Aurelius warned us. The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. And when your thoughts are always about how to keep the peace, you lose the war inside yourself. Victor gave in. He handed over the password. He skipped a night out with friends because she didn't like them. He stopped texting certain people, stopped expressing certain truths. Not because he changed, but because she asked him to prove something. But here's what no one tells you. Real love doesn't need proof at the cost of your identity. You don't have to bleed to be believed. Eventually, Victor looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the man staring back. Not because he'd grown, but because he'd shrunk. So he took it back. One boundary at a time, he reestablished the lines. Not with anger, not with drama, but with quiet certainty. And that's when he learned. The right person doesn't make you prove your love by abandoning your values. They feel safest when you're firm in them. Because the man who protects his peace is the man who can protect anything. So if someone ever says, if you love me, you'll bend. Remember this. Love is not proven in your surrender. It's proven in your strength. Hold the line. Not out of pride, but out of principle. Because when you break yourself to keep someone close, you both lose. Point 4. Keep quiet about what hurts you. Have you ever swallowed pain just to keep someone comfortable? You were hurt. Something she said, maybe it was dismissive, maybe it cut deep. But instead of speaking up, you stayed silent. Because you didn't want to seem too sensitive, too dramatic, too emotional. So you told yourself, it's not a big deal. I'll get over it. But you didn't. You buried it. Victor knows that silence. There was a night Emily made a joke about his childhood. Something he'd shared in vulnerability, turned into entertainment at a dinner table. Everyone laughed, except him. She leaned in later, smiling. Don't take it so personally. It was just a joke. And in that moment, he had two choices. Speak his truth, or protect her feelings at the cost of his own. He chose silence. Because that's what men are taught, right? Be strong. Don't complain. Get over it. But here's the thing no one teaches you. Stoic strength isn't silence, it's clarity. It's not bottling it up until you explode. It's being direct with dignity. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Be tolerant with others and strict with yourself." But he never said, abandon yourself to protect others. Victor's silence turned into resentment. And resentment? That's the slow poison of a relationship. It doesn't scream, it simmers. Until one day your smile feels fake. Your touch feels distant. Your presence feels like a performance. It wasn't that Emily was cruel. It's that he trained her to believe he didn't feel pain. Because every time he did feel something, he kept it quiet. And that silence became a prison. So let me ask you, what are you not saying right now? What pain are you packaging in silence? Who taught you that love means pretending you're unbreakable? You might think it keeps the relationship intact, but it's costing you your self-respect. Victor reached his limit one quiet afternoon. He sat on the edge of his bed, staring at the floor, feeling invisible in his own relationship, and then he said it. Simple. Real. When you laughed at my past. That hurt me. There was no blame, just truth. And for the first time she saw him. Not just the strong man, but the real man, with boundaries, with feelings, with a spine that didn't need to shout, only to stand. That's the power of speaking what hurts, because a man who honors his pain without turning it into rage, that's a man who is untouchable. So the next time someone makes you feel small, and then tells you to stop being so emotional, remember this. You don't have to raise your voice, you just have to raise your standard. Your silence should never be the price of their comfort. Not anymore. Point 5. Let me stay, even if I disrespect you. Have you ever been in a moment where someone disrespected you, spoke to you like you were less than, ignored your boundaries, made a scene in public, mocked you in private, and then looked at you like nothing happened, and you stood there silent because you loved them, because you didn't want to fight, because part of you hoped it was just a bad day? Victor lived that moment. He was at a friend's birthday dinner. Emily had been cold all night, scrolling through her phone, rolling her eyes whenever he spoke. And then, in front of everyone, she snapped, mocked the way he talks about philosophy, called it pretend wisdom, and said he only read books to feel superior. Everyone laughed. Victor smiled too, not because it was funny, but because he didn't know what else to do. Inside he was burning, not from the words, but from the realization she didn't respect him. And worse, she thought he'd let it slide. She'd learned it from experience, because every time she crossed the line before, he forgave. He gave second chances, then third, then 10th. Why? Because he thought love was endurance, that staying was strength, that forgiveness would inspire change. But Marcus Aurelius said, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. That means walking away without drama, not clapping back, not lowering yourself, just leaving. Because every time you let someone stay after they disrespect you, you teach them that your dignity is negotiable. Let that sink in. Victor went home that night in silence. He lay in bed next to a woman who laughed at his soul, and something in him finally shifted. It wasn't anger. It was clarity. He realized, love without respect isn't love. It's manipulation wearing perfume. You don't need to yell. You don't need to argue. You just need to value yourself enough to say, this isn't acceptable. You can't stay here, and don't say it with bitterness. Say it with peace. Because the man who demands respect, not through fists but through quiet action, that man is unshakable. Victor didn't wait for an apology. He didn't hope for her to suddenly change. He packed his things, left with his head high. No dramatic goodbye, just a decision. And in that decision, he got something more valuable than her attention. He got himself back. So I'll ask you, who have you been allowing to stay? Just because you're afraid of being alone? And what would happen if, instead of waiting to be respected, you started respecting yourself first? Respect isn't something you ask for. It's something you enforce. So when someone disrespects you and expects to stay, remember, they're not testing your love. They're testing your limits. And it's time you showed them where the line is. Victor realized he wasn't angry because of what she said. He was angry because he let it continue. Men, listen to me. Your value is not up for debate. Not today. Not tomorrow. Not ever. Anyone who disrespects you and expects to stay in your life must go. Scene 2, Victor's breakthrough. Victor didn't leave her after a big fight. He left her after a quiet moment, where he realized he hadn't felt free in months. It was on a cold Thursday morning. He got up, packed a bag, wrote a note. I can't be someone else just to be loved. And he walked out, not with hatred, not with vengeance, but with a kind of sacred silence that only self-respect gives you. As Marcus Aurelius said, look well into thyself. There is a source of strength which will always spring up if thou wilt always look. Victor had looked. And what he found was this: you don't have to burn to keep someone else warm. Marcus Aurelius Suggestion 1. Protect your mind first. People can touch your skin, but only you allow them into your thoughts. Let me ask you something. How many people have you let into your head? Not your home, not your heart, but your mind. You ever walk away from a conversation feeling smaller, dumber, more uncertain about yourself? And the person didn't even raise their voice. They just planted a little seed of doubt. A look, a sarcastic comment, a dismissive shrug, and suddenly your thoughts aren't even yours anymore. That's what happened to Victor. He used to be proud of his ideas, his ambitions, his routines, the way he thought differently. But slowly, subtly, Emily started creeping into his mind, not with open insults. No, she was smarter than that. It was passive. You think too much. You're always analyzing everything. Why can't you just be normal? At first, he brushed it off. But one day, he sat in silence and realized he no longer trusted his own thoughts. He second-guessed everything. His gut, his instincts, his inner voice. It had gone quiet. Because he let her in, not into his bedroom, but into his mind. And Marcus Aurelius knew the danger of this. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." Victor had given up that power. He let her opinions override his intuition, her judgment dilute his clarity, her voice drown out his own. That's what many people do. They don't attack your body. They don't physically harm you. They go for your identity. They slip into your thoughts like fog through an open window, until you no longer know what you believe in. Let me ask you, who's in your head right now? Whose criticism lives rent-free in your mind? Whose voice do you hear when you doubt yourself? Because here's the Stoic truth. People can touch your skin, but only you can give them access to your mind. Victor began to change the moment he reclaimed that access. He sat alone, journal open, and asked himself, what do I believe? What do I want?